Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Collective Clicks podcast. Today, I have on the podcast Kate Danese. Kate has been helping investors open up this new marketing channel called coaching, where they bring in revenue from the coaching, and also the students can help fund your deals, can become. I'm just going to redo that. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Collective Clicks podcast. This is your host, Brandon Bateman, and today I'm joined by Kate Danese. We talk about all kinds of things, from how you can get more deals, more funding, more dispositions through coaching. Also, how you can improve your sales metrics in your real estate investing business. Kate is a wealth of knowledge, and I think you'll get a lot from this episode. I'll see you there. Kate, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Good. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you too. We talked about how we've been in the same circles kind of, and you know, a number of people within my company, and we just haven't actually had the opportunity to meet until today. So it's awesome to get to know you after somehow not seeing you at the Collective Genius for like 5 years in a row.
Or any of them. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So for anybody else who doesn't know you, explain just a little bit about like who you are, what your background is, where you came from.
Yeah. The high level is I'm originally from New Jersey, sold over 300 million in real estate, all organically without paid ads. And so obviously there was a system behind that. And then I launched into sales consulting. And I've been doing that for the last couple of years. And then I switched my offer into helping real estate investors launch their coaching companies.
Okay. I'm curious, what inspired that recent change?
I love that question.
From consulting to coaching companies.
I'll tell you, Brandon, I'm really big on being in alignment and like purpose driven. And I felt like real estate and real estate transactions, they become transactional and not as fulfilling. And coaching is like very in alignment with me, and it just is like so purpose driven. It's so fulfilling, and it's less about the transactions for me. And so that's why I switched.
All right, cool. Very good for you. So let's talk about this, like the kind of work you've been doing. How long have you been doing this with real estate investors, you know, launching coaching programs?
I've been in the coaching space for 4 years, and about the last year, helping real estate investors launch their coaching companies.
Okay. That makes sense. Because you had your own coaching company
Right.
sort of before. So tell me like the typical real estate investor that does this, like how do they know? I mean, we both know, everybody who has access to social media knows that a lot of real estate investors are doing this kind of thing, right? And we all, I think if you're like connected in the space, we all know somebody who ends up getting a lot of deals organically through the coaching that they do and that kind of thing. And you look at it and say, like, I know people that get like over 100 deals a year just organically from the
They're
coaching.
students. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool, right? So, and I think a lot of people know someone like that, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. You know, I'm spending all this money on marketing, and usually those people, they're also spending money on marketing too. But it's cool that they have like this additional channel that works a little bit differently, that isn't going to necessarily flow up and down as those other channels flow up and down. It's a good counterbalance in terms of like risk. So yeah, help me understand, like, for all the people who look at those people and they're like, oh, that's really cool for them, but it's not for me. What would you say?
I think some of the misconceptions is it's going to take a lot of time, and it's simply not true. I think coaching is 1/10 easier than it is acquiring a real estate deal, doing the transaction to get it to close, rehabbing, all the things, right? So it does not. None of my students are spending more than 5 hours a week on their coaching business, right? They're still running their primary real estate business. And so it doesn't take as much time as someone would think. And it's not going to take away or replace. That's not why we're building it. We're really building it so it can fuel your real estate business even further. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, cool. That
I could keep going.
which was I definitely want you to keep going out, and I have a bunch of questions. But let's start with, so if somebody wants to do it, this is interesting to me, because when I think of like going to the business, I do think of like, this is going to be like probably like 10 years to get this to a point where it's awesome. But I mean, the coaching business is interesting because in a way it's like, it's not crazy different from the real estate business, and all the stuff that you need to learn to be good at coaching, a lot of it you're already learning through the fact that like you're learning how to be good at those things in the real estate business, and it actually supports revenue in the real estate business from getting deals from your students and stuff like that. So it's fascinating because it is, and it also isn't a different business. It's kind of like a different arm or a different focus in the business. So
Exactly.
When people come to you wanting to do this, help me understand like the process. What advice do you give people? What mistakes do they make?
Yeah, I think most people that I am attracting anyway, that I'm working with, are looking for that like more purposeful driven career, right? They've found success in real estate, which is the world we're from. They found success in that and they're thriving and they're making good money in that and they've got that figured out. But now they're like, now what? Like real estate does become very transactional. And so now they're like, well, coaching, I feel like, is the next best thing that is in alignment, that doesn't take away, that does fuel, right? It's like the hub and spoke model, if you're familiar with that. It does fuel it, and you are fulfilled because you're helping other people live out their purpose and legacy. The process is like as simple as possible. My goal constantly every day, I'm like, how can I get clients quicker results? Like, what can I cut out of the program? I don't like to give any fluff at all. Very direct. I'm like, week one, we're going over your avatar. Who is your avatar that you can help turn into a real estate investor, right? Because these people are teaching wholesale, they're teaching how to fix and flip, they're teaching the BRRRR strategy, whatever they're teaching. So we're going over their ideal avatar. The second week, we're going over how to create their offer. So we're customizing their offer with them. The third week, we're going into how we're creating the backbone of your offer. So there's a difference between your 1 to 2 sentence, like high level offer, and then like what makes up that offer, like what really happens behind the offer. So we're going through that. And then it's organic strategies from there, how to get people interested, and then how are you converting them, right?
Right. Yeah, this seems simple enough, right?
It
So
is.
how many weeks between when somebody says like I think I can do this and they have this real, like, to use your hub and spoke analogy, they've got a spoke on their hub.
Within 8 weeks.
Okay. So within 8 weeks, like ideally they have some new coaching clients.
Within 8 weeks, you should have a new coaching client paid in full. Yes.
Very cool. It's an interesting model, right? An interesting thing that you can just add on. Why would you say that this wouldn't be a good idea for somebody?
If you are not abundant thinking, if you don't already have that like abundant mindset, if you're not naturally a given person, this is probably not you. Some people may think, and I say that, and I'll give an example, I don't want to teach the person in my backyard how to get deal. Well, then you're not going to be a great coach because we need you to teach people in your backyard. Or, I mean, you can do it virtually, right? But that mindset typically doesn't fare well or align with coaches. Coaches are typically very abundant thinking, there's enough deals to go around type of deal. So that would probably not be the best person for us. And the other one is, I really like to work with people that already have a successful business that we can sort of just take and sort of reframe the offer so it is scalable. So for example, if you're doing the BRRRR strategy 50 times a year or 100 times a year, how can we just reposition that offer and teach it virtually and make it extremely scalable and then also fuel the business, the real estate business?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I know, like, just to give some examples, I'm curious if you can add some examples to this, just to get people thinking and like what they know well and how that could serve them.
Yeah.
Like, I know people who are doing this and they're they're becoming kind of an authority in their local market, and it's not like this huge like national deal, but they have like local meetups that they run, and they get a lot of deals and JVs from other people that are just kind of up and coming. Like I know investors that run like co-working spaces in their local market where like up and coming wholesalers can come and work at their office. And through that they get to be exposed to the deals. I also know people, for example, that are teaching like real estate investing from more of the cash flow standpoint. And they use that to fuel their turnkey exit strategy that they have. So now when everybody else is having like all these ups and downs because they're struggling with dispositions based on however the real estate market is, they're actually selling the properties at a higher price to their own pipeline of people that they're creating themselves. So they have more control over it, not just what is there on the market. And turnkey can be an awesome exit strategy, especially for those who are in like these cash flow markets and stuff like that. Right. So these are just like, I'm just spitballing. Like these are some
No, you're
thoughts
100% right. The
I'm
cat.
curious if you have things to add to that, like other ways that you've seen investors use this where it's like benefited their business.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, specifically with the cash flow. So real estate can be, and I have a different thought on this, but real estate typically for investors is very up and down, right? They very rarely have consistent months. I do think that could be fixed with the proper tracking of KPIs and forecasting, but that's a different topic. And so coaching can be that cash flow fuel to your real estate business, like you've mentioned, right? Because we we have a skill set in teaching flipping or burr strategy or et cetera. We have a skill set that has a very high ROI, meaning deal math, you can charge high, right? So I can charge you $20,000 because I know that I'm going to teach you this skill and it's going to generate you $100,000 on your next flip or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So you have the ability to charge high in this industry with your coaching because you're giving it a high ROI, and then you're also fueling your business with cash flow consistently. Now, an example of how it's helped and how real estate investors have adjusted is I mentioned earlier, one of the students has gone away with their internal sales team to generate commercial deals for his commercial company. And he's now fueling his deals through his students only. So he's getting so many deals through his students that he doesn't even have to lead generate anymore on his own, which is like a dream come true, right?
Yeah. And not to mention, on that same note, I know people doing that are getting investment money or private money from their students as well. So there's a private money side, right? So if you think about all these different things, like how do you find the deals? How do you sell the deals? How do you fund the deals? Like all these things, like if you have a community of people that believe in you and trust you and want to make money in real estate with you, like there's a lot that you can do. You just have leverage that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, I like cannot comprehend how real estate investors are not having coaching programs alongside of them for this exact reason. And you don't have to have a huge audience. Like you mentioned, like you could be just hosting your local real estate meetup that has 10 people showing up consistently a month. And three of those people could be your clients, right? And then that's how you get your coaching business started.
Yeah, that would make sense 100%. All right, I want to shift gears in a like really major way.
Get after
Sorry,
it.
I feel like a little abrupt, but before we wrap things up, I definitely want to learn a little bit from you on the sales side, just because you have this track record of doing so well on the retail sales side, and you brought that into coaching investors and the collective genius on their sales over the last several years. So I imagine you've learned quite a lot of things. Like I always respect, maybe it's just because I'm a vendor. I really respect people because if somebody has like their own business and they have their own experiences in that, like that teaches you a lot.
Yeah.
But when you work with a whole bunch of different businesses, they're constantly looking at their numbers, you're understanding what's happening for them. You get a little bit of a different perspective that's a little bit more all encompassing, right? Because you've seen people do it a lot of different ways and you've seen what's worked. So I'll start with like an incredibly broad question, but from those years that you've done that, I'm super curious to learn what in your opinion are some of the more impactful insights, some of the more impactful things that you learned.
So I'll say almost everybody has the same problems across the board. Most companies don't have a lead problem, they have a lead conversion problem. So I'll say that again slowly. Most people don't have a lead problem, they have a lead conversion problem, meaning
I'm not going to say it, but I'll let you say it. When the marketing company, right? So as far as my team's concerned, it's always our fault. But
yeah, that's not true.
There's a real difference between some of our clients and others of our clients for sure on conversion.
Yeah, so I'll reference, I reference Harvard lead study. So Harvard, right, not my own opinion, Harvard does a study every couple of years and I reference it often. The projections don't change, but they do a study on sales organizations and a couple of things come out of that. I can send it to you if you're interested, if you don't already have it, but you need to follow up with a lead in less than 5 minutes to have a chance to convert them. So if you don't have people answering your phones right away or answering your leads right away, how are you automating that system, right? So that's number one. You have to answer your leads within less than 5 minutes if you want to convert them. And then Harvard also says that you need to follow up with your leads more than 7 times to be able to convert them. Most people are following up with their leads less than 2 times. So I could probably just stop
Crazy.
there. And like if someone listening and puts in, just adjusts those 2 metrics, their lead conversion can go up.
Yeah, which is crazy. I would also say there's a piece of this that's tracking too, right? Because here's the thing. Like you did a lot of this in the Collective Genius, right? And the Collective Genius is like a group of investors that aren't like doing their first deal or
Right.
their first few deals or something like that. Like these are actual companies that actually made it from point A to point B. They're trying to get somewhere else, a lot of them, right? But you weren't amongst like the least qualified real estate investing companies in the industry at all. Yet you still see these kinds of problems. I can tell you across our clients, what we see over and over again is like, we'll see the conversion problem. And then we'll basically tell the client, they're like, oh, no, that's not us. Like we're following up all the time. We're getting delayed quickly. And then we like audit in their CRM. We're like, no, like you're not. Like you should listen to some of these calls. And what about
Yeah.
this lead that took 12 hours to get to, and all this stuff. And I think a lot of people like, because I think everybody would agree with what you just said. Like I think most of our clients especially would say, like, we know we have to get to leads quickly. We know we need to follow up for the lot. And where people struggle is just making it actually happen. Or sometimes they feel like it's happening. They think it's happening. They've told their team repeatedly, make sure this happens, and it's not happening.
Yeah. So you just used an amazing keyword. You said they feel like. Phenomenal thing about business is there's no emotion involved. It's literally just statistics, right? It's just numbers. It's just a numbers game. And the numbers tell a story, right? And so I think if we backtrack, you're right. Most people, even like the highest companies in Collective Genius, will stay on that topic, but even the highest premier companies that you may look up to, most of them are not even tracking the basic KPIs, right? The key performing indicators. And they're emotionally making decisions, right? They want to switch CRMs, or they want to like do all of these emotionally based things that think that is going to have an impact on their company, and it's not. So if they could just track very basic things, for example, how many leads are coming in, how many leads are turning to two-way conversations, how many two-way conversations are turning into appointments, how many appointments are actually being held versus lost, how many signed contracts are happening and then closed, and measuring your revenue off of each deal. If you can measure those roughly 5 to 6 things, you know how to make every decision to increase or change or adjust a lever to go down or up, right? So I'll give an example. I coach a client still on business in real estate investing, and they don't have a coaching offer yet, but they will soon. But we still coach them on real estate investing business. And they have an incredible, we started measuring this and we looked at this KPI this week. They have an incredible two-way conversation to appointment set ratio. But they have a major fall off from appointments set to appointments actually held. So now we know exactly, right? If we're looking at all 6 of those KPIs roughly, we know exactly where to go to make an adjustment so they have higher revenue next month, right? So when we look at why is their appointments set to appointments held so low? Well, they're scheduling appointments out more than 10 days in advance. Their competitors are in there making offers and their leads are signing deals with other people. So we only knew that, right? Like they wanted to do 12 other things to fix a problem that they didn't even know really. But as soon as we started looking at the actual numbers and KPIs, it tells you exactly what to do.
Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about is basically it's a process I believe in a ton. Like, so we like built it into something that we do with our clients on a monthly basis, where we're analyzing the funnel and the constraints, right? So it's kind of like the theory of constraints for business, where the idea that like every business has certain constraints, and oftentimes there's one that's most important. If you can fix that, then it's fine. So where we won't go left. And I personally believe that like the vast majority of businesses don't have a problem with solving problems. They're actually really good at solving problems. They have a problem with identifying what the true problem is. And if they can figure that out, then solving the problem is like entrepreneurs are really good at that. But the problem is, I'm using the word problem way too much, but the problem is that like we look, like, to give you a classic example, at like the ROI of a marketing channel, like, oh, it's an ROI problem, so we're going to do a different marketing channel. When really it could be that what we have is an appointment set to appointment attended. conversion rate issue, which just takes like ROI is just like the top of that funnel, right? How much money you put into the top compared to how much you get at the bottom. And that appointments set to appointments attended ratio, that's just like two of the steps that it has to go through to get there, right? You can
Yep.
identify that's where all the water's falling out of the bucket. And this is how we make sure it gets all the way through. So I love that. I believe in that. But these things are hard. Like I don't want to sit here from like our high horse and say like,
Oh yeah, I'm not perfect at all.
one of those things gets like so much easier said than done. Like I have real problems in my business with figuring out how to like all the nuances of tracking these numbers and like, oh, and the numbers say this, but that's not exactly accurate for this reason. And that, that person didn't like use the CRM right. So then the number's not as valid. And like our reporting dashboard changed. So we were a little bit confused and there was this technical error and there's infinite numbers of things, right? So it's one of these things where it's like, it's so easy to say like, I'll just do this, but it's so hard to actually like consistently do this with like true operational excellence. But I agree, like some of our clients that are really good at that it shows, like it makes a massive difference to their results.
Yeah, I think most entrepreneurs are afraid of the numbers and they don't actually know the value in which it can do for them. So they sort of just like, they're like, oh, a spreadsheet, that's not for me. And I'm like, show me the spreadsheet because that's going to tell us everything. And it doesn't mean that you have to like sit there and track it, right? Like someone else, like a virtual assistant can do it. You just need enough information to know like what those numbers truly mean.
Yeah, or good people on your team that can help you pull those numbers together. Like in our case, if a client just tells us with each lead what happened with it, we can build that whole funnel for them, and we can actually show them compared to our other clients who might be in similar markets. This is exactly what their funnel looks like, and then this is exactly what your funnel looks like, which is powerful, right? Because even more powerful than being able to say like I've contacted 70% of my leads is to be able to say I've contacted 70% of my leads and I know that is bad because I know that 82% is the average.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Context is crazy helpful.
Yes.
Because otherwise also like we have people all the time who are like, oh no, my cost per lead's too high. And then actually your cost per lead's like really average. If you guys just converted at an average rate, things would be great. Then you're just not identifying the right problem, right? You're trying to fix the thing that's actually normal and you're not fixing the thing that's actually abnormal.
Yeah, no, you actually make a really good point because for people that don't track anything, they don't know how to compare it. And so a quick fix for that is to get in your like mastermind or local group or Google it and just figure out what your industry standard is for that conversion ratio of what you're starting to track and measure off of that until you have enough data to show like this is my goal now, this is where I am each week, and here's where my fall off rate is. So you could use industry standards until you get your own KPIs.
Yeah, 100%. There's also, so on the topic of that, if anybody's listening to this, we just released our Bateman Collective Industry Report. And the way this works is we had real estate investors across the entire industry submit all their numbers. Things like per marketing channel, what kind of leads per contract ratio do you have? Where's your contract fallout? How much money are you making from different exit strategies in the market that you're in? What's your company profit margin? Like all of this, like really, really interesting information. And we take all that and then we've segmented it by different sizes of investor, right? So smaller investors, medium size, larger investors. And what happens is you can go to this website, you fill out the survey. As soon as you finish the survey, you'll be emailed a report and it's going to have like two different parts of the graph. It's going to show you and it's going to show your peers on all those different metrics. And it's just super fast because it helps you understand, like, compared to other companies that are truly really similar to you, a stronger data set. What does it look like? And then you avoid the issue of like, how many people realize if their numbers are good or not based on a conversation they have with somebody at a bar, at a mastermind.
Yeah.
And like, I can tell you from my experience, like, you don't know how many clients I have that are like, oh no, Brandon, my cost per lead's too high. It's $1,200. And I'm like, it's $250. Like a lot of people don't know their numbers, right?
No, I know.
And also it's one data point when you talk to one person. But since we've been able to aggregate all the data together, it's interesting because it gives like a really solid benchmark. And we learned so much stuff.
Wait, so that's amazing. First of all, where can people find this? Because I want to look at it.
Yes, I can point you towards it. We'll put a link in the show notes here.
Okay.
Because I don't remember exactly what the link is to like
And
go
then-
and fill it out, but it's very cool.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And then curious on this conversation topic, how many people filled out and actually knew all of the questions that you asked?
So they were allowed to like skip something if they don't know that information. So we're
Okay.
trying not to like get other really bad information, but it is a saying like, please tell us what your numbers are on these things. And so there's some room there for it to be like, higher or lower. But I personally subscribe to the idea that like error and bias are like two really different things. And, if we have a sample and some of the people are a little bit, some of the people skew higher, some skew lower, then, the numbers will be approximately right with a large enough sample. I think it's in the 70s, number of investors fill it out. So
That's
it's
amazing.
big enough sample size. It's pretty large. It's like as big as your average mastermind, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like everybody. I would love to have more people fill it out.
That's amazing.
It's hard to get people to give you all their numbers in their business, though.
And then what do you plan to do with that?
So our immediate like thing that we have with it is if you fill it out, you'll get an immediate report that compares you to other investors in a bunch of levels. There's also opportunities for deeper analysis of that data, and we've started to do a lot of that. So we've started to do some trainings with different groups where we've like show some of the stuff. Like I could show you like a P&L of the average like real estate investment company broken out by how big they are. And as you scale, this is how much more should go to operational expenses. And what's the real average return on investment for marketing? Which, by the way, is about 2.9x, which is a lot lower than a lot of people think.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of like, so the first phase is kind of, put your numbers in and see how you compare. But then there's a level of deeper analysis, and we're starting to do some presentations on that kind of stuff too.
Oh, I'm nerd. I'm so interested, but we'll keep that offline, I guess.
Well, I'll send you anything you want to see. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
And if you're listening to this podcast and you want to see this, like we just made a presentation for one of our partners, Joe Home Buyer, as like a franchise across the nation, and we gave it to them, and it was received really well. And yeah, we worked on a lot of the insights, which was pretty fascinating. So if there's demand for that, we could do something like that, like webinar style with our audience or something like that. But
that's amazing.
It's cool. At the very least, like we even have like that data's fueled the way that we optimize PPC campaigns and that kind of stuff. Just as we learn so much more about what actually, what the numbers look like for the average real estate investor and what it takes for them to have success. So I'm convinced, like if you're like a true data nerd with just a little bit of data, you could do a lot of like really, really interesting things.
I'm with you. Yeah.
So okay, to wrap it up, if anybody's, listen to this and they're officially convinced, like they should probably start doing a little coaching or something like that, what's the best way for them to move forward with that?
Facebook's probably the easiest way that you can find me under my name, Kate Danese, and then send me a DM. That's probably the easiest.
All right. Well, if you're listening to this, highly encourage you to reach out to Kate. And for everybody listening, I will see you next week.
Thanks so much.